here we are, set 7.5, patch 12.20. Let's go. In this video, you are going to learn all about the Lagoon comp. Yes, I am a Lagoon enjoyer. We're going to talk about different build paths, the starters, items, basically everything you need to know to play the Lagoon comp successfully. I've been getting top 4 with it almost every game. There's a few games that I got 5th. But once my computer crashed, so what are you going to do? I'm also going to be putting up some infographics throughout this video to help illustrate some of the points. You can screenshot them later, but let's get right into it. So, of course, you're going to want to activate the Lagoon trait as soon as possible, but don't ruin a good starting board and like waste gold re-rolling to get it going. It is important to get it activated very quickly, but it's more important to set up your early game properly. If you don't hit Lagoon at all in stage 2, then I might consider a different build, honestly. Now, here we go. You see I get a 2-star Skarner, which is great because that goes well with Malphite to get the Bruiser trait, which is pretty strong early game. You can also see that I started with the Giant's Belt unintentionally, but I decided to slam a Sunfire Cape because I feel like it's pretty good early mid. I think there are better items late game, but there is so much healing, and you're going to see in this game there's a ton of healing and drain tanks, so it was a wise decision. So again, just kind of see where your board is at. We're going to see our first augments here. So new recruit is the only one that really makes sense. Birthday present I considered for about half a second, but I just don't think the payoff's worth it. And then I thought I could really have a strong early game because I'm going to have that extra unit. I already have a 2-star Skarner with a Sunfire Cape. There we go. Also picked up the Zac and the Talia. Now I have my Lagoon trait. I can start stacking that up. For starter items with this comp, it is good to start Needlessly Large Rod or Tier. If you get the Tier and you get an early blue buff, it's really going to help you start stacking the Lagoon econ that much quicker. But I also am a big fan of Morellos on this build, so if you do start Needlessly Large Rod, you can either turn it into Archangels or Morellos. So either of those are a good start, but honestly, you do need a really tanky front line, so there's no real bad start other than AD items, because we're going to try to pick up Neela in almost every single game, but it's not the core, so I would never start AD items. For your item holders, Talia and Kai'Sa are going to be your best bets. I found in this current patch that Talia is the much easier option. A, because she's a mage, so you can get the double cast going, which is also good for your econ stacks. And B, Kai'Sa seems to be really contested for a Dragonmancer reroll build right now. So that's pretty much it for your early board. You're looking for Bruisers, Guardians, Mage, Lagoon. Those are my 4 go-tos. So while we finish out the rest of this stage 2 before the carousel, I'm going to talk to you about items. We're probably going to talk about them more later as it's actually happening in the game, but I wanted to put this infographic up here and just go over what the main items you're looking for, because as we know, we have to start planning that out pretty early in the game. So for Sohm, we're going to want Blue Buff, Morello, and Archangels. That's my preference. I know some people like to go the crit route with Jeweled Gauntlet and Infinity Edge and Blue Buff. I think it's kind of situational depending on what you're getting, but for me, Morello's and Blue Buff has never let me down. I played so much Syndicate with Twisted Fate, and I swear Morello and Blue Buff got me to the end game every single time, and that was on a 1-cost unit. So it's kind of the same with Talia or Kai'Sa. You're going to keep applying that debuff over and over, and then I think it still really does work well on Sohm. For your tank items that will likely go on Silas, Sunfire or Warmogs, Dragonclaw, Bramble Vest, or Gargoyle Stoneplate. Those are pretty much all the tank items. So if I was to pick best in slot, I would probably go Sunfire, Dragonclaw, and Bramble Vest. If you do end up going the Mystic Guardian route, which we'll talk about in a little bit, you could maybe take away Dragon's Claw and do the Gargoyle Stoneplate, And then if you must, a ZZ Rot would be okay on Silas, but it's better to put on your secondary tank, because there's just a lot better items, and you're really going to want that one strong tank to delay the fight as long as possible. Neela, because she's not going to be your main carry, kind of any AD items really work on her. I've had a success with a lot of different items, but because you don't have a lot of use for BF Sword, Bloodthirster, Edge Knight are the two that I typically go with. Now we're approaching the carousel, so what I'm thinking here is that I want to get a Morello's. Even though I already have the Sunfire Cape, I like to secure the Morello's really early. But if I can't get Morello's, then the tier. But I'm assuming both of them are going to go. So I'm already thinking maybe I should grab the Giant Spelt for the Warmogs. But then nobody ends up taking the tier. So I'm like, okay, let's get that out of the way. I'm going to need about 3 of them ideally for this build. So getting one right off the hop is perfect for me. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and do a pretty standard leveling to level 5, especially because I haven't lost a round yet and I'm win streaking. I need to make sure that I have the strongest board possible. I throw down another Lagoon. Oh, maybe I don't. Yeah, okay, so I wanted to get the Astrals because that was just going to be extra econ. Now, this is the first and only game so far I've done this season, and it actually worked out really well because I was win streaking and I got a lot of econ. It just added even more, but I would never prioritize that, and I don't keep it for very long. I would never sacrifice something else just to keep the Astral going, especially because I'm not hitting the higher tiers of it where you're really going to start benefiting from it. Now let's talk about why I think this comp is so good and why I think you should actually play it. I have been playing, or forcing rather, Lagoon almost every game because it just seems to never fail me. The one caveat to that is I've had a little bit of a struggle getting first place because there are just some other really broken comps, but every game I'm pretty much second or third place, which for me is fine. I don't have to be number 1, especially because all those comps are really highly contested. So if you don't hit it and you end up going 6th or 7th, I feel like that is really annoying and it just feels bad. So I would rather play this comp and get second, third every single game and slowly climb, especially while I'm figuring out some other comps that I might want to try or might want to learn. And I think the best way is to sticking to one comp that is keeping you in the running for those top couple spots like pretty much every game. The games that I got 5th, like I said, once my computer crashed, so by the time I got back on, I had lost 2 rounds where I didn't buy or didn't upgrade any units, so I lost a ton of health and I still got 5th. So one tip about when you're doing the PvE rounds, it's always best to put as many Lagoon champions on the board as possible. You should be winning all the PvE rounds, but you can see here that I, at the last minute, realized, oh, I should be switching out my Vlad to Talia or Malphite, but I didn't. But I do it in the future PvE rounds. But it's free stacks for your econ, which is awesome, and you know you're going to win them, so you don't need your absolute best units, but then make sure to switch back immediately after so that you don't ruin your win streak, because we don't want that. Alright, so I get the blue buff here, which makes me have a lot of peace because I just have that secured. I also got a Giant Spelt, so I'm pretty sure that that means Morello's in my near future. So I'm feeling really good at this point. Also got a 2-star Lux randomly. Feeling really great about that. As you can see, my econ is really, really good. We're about to hit our augment second choice. And I'm at 43 gold, which is a little bit higher than I usually am, which I'm really happy about. But again, if you have a proper win streak, you should be around this much gold anyways. I'm going to throw another infographic up here actually because we are going to pick our second augment. So this is a good time for me to just kind of show you what augments I typically go for. However, I do think that you need to be really flexible with your augments because I think that some people get pigeonholed into picking the exact same ones every time because they feel comfortable with it, but it might not be the best. So I think it's good to have the ones that you know are going to work well with your team comp. And here are the ones that I found a lot of success with Lagoon. But just be agile, because if you get a creative opportunity to make your build a lot better, then go for it. And don't be afraid to experiment as well. So you can see here, Oasis came up, which I knew I was going to take. I've had nothing but success with this augment, and I feel like the healing just keeps my front line along really well, and even has won me some clutch fights at the end when I just have my carries left. And the healing, they end up healing enough where they can do their burst damage, and then we win. We also see that I just used my Reforger. With this build, you end up getting several Reforgers, so I don't really hesitate to use them, especially if I can get an item that is going to really boost my calm. Sometimes when I was playing Lagoon, I would actually save all my Reforgers and magnetic removers, and then I would end up with a bunch left at the end of the game. So now I really try to greed for my items, and I figure I might as well use them now. The only time I wouldn't is if I already had no items I needed, then I would probably save it for a more clutch moment. But because I felt really good so far, I really felt like I couldn't go wrong. Alright, so now we can see we're still stomping. We still haven't had to face the first place person. I remember at this point feeling a little bit nervous because I was not sure if that fight was going to end my win streak, and I figured it was probably coming up pretty soon. This game was also great because I naturally rolled a lot of the 2 stars I needed, and I know sometimes that does not happen in games and it can be really frustrating. Try to be patient and not reroll before you hit that 50 gold, but there are some times where it is okay to roll a little bit. There's no exact science for it, but I mean, I don't know, I've really learned that patience is key in the long run, but there are some times where if you have no 2 stars, sometimes you might lose way too much health before your build can come online. So again, you just have to be really, really adaptable. So we're fighting the other first place person, and at first I thought we're going to absolutely win the fight. Then I kind of thought, oh no, maybe we're not going to win this one. And then by the end of it, I thought, yeah, okay, we're going to win this one for sure. So we ruined their win streak. I felt very good about that, and we are off to the next carousel, which again, we will be picking last. So I absolutely want to finish my Morellos at this point. I do have a backup plan though. A cloak would be great. I figured Neela would go in the first round, which she did. But I figured if I could finish my Dragon Claw, that would probably be good. Even if you do end up using Seraphine and Rakan to get the Mystic trait, I still think Dragon's Claw does work, especially if you can see some of the other comps are really starting to build a lot of magic damage. If it's mostly AD, then I would maybe favor, you know, like a Gargoyle Stone Plate. So as you can see, we got our Morello. I'm so happy. I am just the biggest Morello fan, and I don't even care if it's the science isn't behind it. That item just works for me and my playstyle, and I feel like it never lets me down. So yeah. So we're going to get rid of the Astral trait now, put Silas in there. I was actually a little bit nervous about this round because I was like, did I just give up a 2-star Bruiser for a 1-star and I'm going to ruin my own streak? And I had that moment of panic, which I often do because I'm not perfect. Sometimes I make really rash decisions, but I mean, it wasn't the end of the world either way, but luckily we still won this one. And now we are set up for a very, very strong mid game. while we're on the topic of frontline, I have played quite a few games since I finished this game and recorded this video, and I have been experimenting with some other builds. So as you can see here, actually in my shop, you're gonna see some dragons come up, and one is Siphon. I've had some pretty good success getting rid of Malphite, and obviously one more champ to put in Siphon. So if you have Silas and Siphon as a front line, it works pretty good, but then I would prioritize your items for the dragon versus Silas. And even I had one game where I went Darkflight Swain, and then I had Neela and Rengar to activate the Darkflight trait, and that worked pretty well too. But again, you need really good tank items, and the games where I find that I do get 5th or maybe even 6th, it's usually because my front line does not last long enough for my units to destroy the board. So definitely it's fun to go for damage items always, but your front line really helps you survive longer to get your econ stacks, and B, to actually do your rotations of spells and really do damage. And speaking of Darkflight Swain, you're gonna see here that I actually lose my first round, which is fine. At this point, I'm in a very good position. I'm very far ahead. I have over 50 gold. I'm going into the Wolves round very strong. I finally remember to switch out my non-Lagoon champs for Lagoon champs, and I promise you it does make a difference. The more you stack and the more you optimize your econ, the better it will be. Like sometimes when I really prioritize the stacks, I hit 300, 350 plus stacks in the late game, and you're getting such good items. It gives you a lot of flexibility in your gameplay. As you can see from the items we got, there's nothing really to slam at this point. There looks like some items for an eventual Neela are possible. Also, a cloak is good because eventually I am going to want to make a Dragon's Claw. Finally got the Soam, so gonna swap out Neela. I also leveled up, so I have my 2 slots, and now we can get that going. It also boosts me up to make sure that I can keep that 6th Goon trait. It goes from 8 AP to 30 AP currently, so that's a pretty big deal. That's almost like another item, and especially if you only have your Morellos and blue buff for Soam, it does make a big difference in damage, and so that's pretty great. So yeah, we are facing this round, and finally you can start to see that damage pop off. Once you hit that rotation with the big tidal wave that destroys everything, it really does help. So yeah, we're back on to a win streak. We still have a ton of gold, a ton of champs to reroll, and now it is time to pick our next augment. So there's Essence Theft, which is a great choice. That's the one I'm going to go with. First Aid Kit also works well because there is a lot of healing. Most of the champs have some form of healing or shielding mechanic, and it does make a difference. You can also see from my loot that I got enough to make the Dragon's Claw now. I 3-starred my Lux randomly, which is fine. I never specifically try to go for a 3-star Lux, but you know what? I will always take a 3-star, even if I end up swapping out Lux later with a different mage. But usually, like, I don't know, I find that Lux kind of stays in my rotation, other than if I do get a Zoe, because of the Monsoon spell, which does do basically team-wide CC, which is really helpful. But otherwise, yeah, Lux is... So now we are back to dominating. We're going to get through the rest of stage, the beginning of stage 4 until the carousel. I have a Neela now on board, so it's tough to say if you should put Neela in right away. You definitely don't want to ruin any of your like mage synergies or anything, but I have had Neela do some sneaky finishing off, especially because her ability allows that reset. Sometimes a 1-star Neela ends up, even with no items, actually does pretty decent damage, but not always. That could just be luck or circumstance, but so I throw her in here, and I'm thinking about doing the Last Whisper, but I don't think Whisper is necessarily the best in slot item for Neela, so I think it's better to wait. I've had a lot of success with Hodge, Bloodthirster, Infinity Edge. If you do get Infinity Edge, Bloodthirster, Last Whisper's great to start shredding, but I would never do it as a first item, because that's just, you're committing way too hard, and even with an item like Hodge, that works well on a ton of different champs. So even if you end up selling the Neela for some reason, then you're not stuck with a Last Whisper, which is not really that effective on a lot of other champs. So it is time for the next carousel. I'm still in a good position. You can see there's one win streak that is in second place. There's a couple really low people. Like, there's no way I'm getting 7th or 8th. If I do, it's not like they're cashing out mercenaries like set 6 and they're gonna go on like a 12 win streak and end up top 4ing. That's not really the case with this set. So yeah, I'm left with a couple choices. Grab a Giant's Belt, which I am pretty sure that I like to have just in case I do want to make a ZZ Rot. Silas isn't the absolute optimal frontline tank without ZZ Rot. He just doesn't survive long enough, even with perfect items. So my one mistake here is I would put the ZZ Rot on a Malphite, because you kind of want Malphite to die first and then the ZZ Rot to activate, and then kind of save Silas to tank more damage later. But you know what? That's okay. Also, we have a magnetic remover, so I'm not too worried. You get usually multiple magnetic removers during the game, so that's kind of one thing I really like about this build, is even if something's not optimal, you can kind of slam it for now and then fix it later or change it later. It's also good to start experimenting with things, but that's kind of what I do with items with this build, just because, again, I have another magnetic remover already, so I'm pretty confident. So as we're going to approach the dragon, which I really like that it's this treasure dragon mechanic. I know that in my previous video I talked a lot about mechanics that I think that there's a lot of mechanics in the set, and maybe even too many mechanics. But the more I play, the less annoyed I am of all the mechanics. But the treasure dragon is one I didn't touch on, and I actually do like it because I love the whole risk and refresh, because A, you kind of need to save some gold for the treasure dragon, and B, it kind of allows you, if you got no good picks on the carousel, no good items from the PvE round, it gives you that chance to finish an important item for your build, because when you don't finish those important items, like, it does feel bad, and I know that is part of the game, but at a certain point, like, your skill and strategy should be the biggest factor versus just luck of getting best in slot items, or an item that's really required to make your build pop off. I get absolutely slaughtered here. I remember thinking at this point, like, oh my goodness, here I go. I went from 100 health down to 67. Like, this is it for me. I'm probably not even going to make top 4 or get 4th. So I have quite a bit of gold, so I'm going to just refresh and take my time. I do see a best in slot item for Sohm, so that is very tempting. Gonna go ahead and grab that. And here you see I 3-star my Zac, which is awesome. He can tank a lot more as a 3-star, get off a lot more spell rotations because he has pretty low mana cost, so I'm thrilled about that. So I'm going to go ahead and get my last item for Soam. Here we go, I 2-star my Neela, so I believe I make a Ginsu's Rage Blade. Yes, I do. Not the biggest fan of that decision, but it's fine. Again, I have some magnetic removers, but even if I remove the Rage Blade, who am I really going to put it on? Neela doesn't really benefit that much from attack speed. She benefits more from damage, because if she can really do damage with her ability to get those resets going, that's what's important. But yeah, it's all right. So now my front line is really starting to last a little bit longer. So you can see those spell rotations last pretty good. And back to a win, which gives me a lot of joy. I got another Rage Blade here from my Econ, which is amazing. Like that full item. In this case, I already have a useless Rage Blade, but because you get some reforgers, again, I can probably just reforge them later if I need to. So I go ahead and slam a second Rage Blade on Neela, and I guess attack speed is the way we're going. Last couple rounds before the carousel. Again, not too much is going on here. This is kind of the point in the game where some people do start to really drop off or pop off, so it's really important to be scouting the different boards and figuring out where your gaps are in your own build and what you can do to strengthen it up. I don't have a ton of gold right now, so I can't reroll for my 2-star Soam, but I think it's just, yeah, it's really important to kind of figure out where you're gonna go, if you can position better, and just try to optimize your board so that you can either, you know, win as many rounds as possible, or just make sure that you're not losing a ton of health. Because I was set up so good in the early game, I had a lot of health to burn, but in situations where you don't have a lot of health to burn, you really have to be strategic and try not to lose health so much. Alright, so as you can see, I finally 2-starred my main carry, which is always nice. It does make a big difference with damage, so that is great. The other thing I'm realizing is, or when I watch guides myself or videos, it always seems like it's the easiest, most natural games where they hit their builds, and sometimes I almost wonder, like, if it would be better to show sometimes when you had like a really rocky start, but then you made it work through your decisions, and maybe that would help people get better, because if you're hitting everything, it seems like pretty easy to make decisions because it seems obvious and you're having an easy time. But when you're having a rough game, it's really hard to turn it around sometimes. So I might make a guide where things don't start off so great, and then, you know, things turn around for the better. Alright, it's the carousel time. This is going to be our last carousel. I decide I do not want 2 Rage Blades on Neela, so I considered getting Giant Slayer or Last Whisper, but I ended up going with Deathblade because I just wanted the raw AD and damage, and Deathblade also works really well. Sometimes I just forget about it because not all the time you have 2 BF swords to play around with, usually if I have a BF sword with Neela, the first thing I try to make is Edge of Night, because it kind of allows her to drop that aggro, which I find is really important for her to start getting her resets off. So instead, we're going to have Rageblade Lux, and honestly at this point, it is what it is. If I get some reforgers, then I know I can reforge Lux immediately and try to get maybe a better tank item for my front line, or maybe even a second Morelos that I can throw on Seraphine. There is a lot of healing in this set, I find, so Morelos, Sunfire Capes, they're always good to have. But I'm pretty much dominating at this point once you get the 2-star Dragon. Yeah, I just find that it is pretty easy to steamroll the rounds as long as your front line survives. This is the first guide I've made, so I'd love to hear your feedback in the comments of what I could maybe do better. I 3-starred Silas here, which I was like, okay, I'm getting top 2 for sure. This is going to be great. I'm already winning the rounds pretty easily. But anyways, just, yeah, I would love to know what your feedback is. I don't know. Sometimes when people cut out parts of the game or fast forward, then I kind of wish I knew what they're thinking. But then sometimes it also maybe draws out too long. So I'm going to play around with maybe some different styles. But let me know what you liked about this guide. If you like the infographics, or if that's just something you could get from any of like the LOL chess websites that, you know, they do a pretty good job. But yeah, I just want to know your thoughts, if this was good, bad, helpful. Yeah, once I'm actually back up to my master rank in this set, I think the guides will get a little more interesting because the players are obviously better. But this Lagoon guide so far, I've even climbed a ton since this game, and I stand by this build. It's been pretty consistent, and the few times that I've tried other builds, I've been disappointed, and Lagoon just never lets me down. Even if I do get 5th or a couple 6th games here and there, I don't mind, because it's just like, it's not like I'm outclassed by the other builds. It's just I didn't hit what I needed to, or I made some decisions or rolled some gold that basically just dumb rookie mistakes that, you know, sometimes you just have to realize that you could have done something better, and that's just fine. All right, so we're on 6-1. The other thing that's really important late game is to try to actually get to level 9, especially if you are going to go with 2 dragons, which I do recommend. It's really good to hit that level 9, but I know it's so tempting to roll gold, especially if, let's say, you haven't hit 3-star Silas, you haven't hit some 2 stars. I think that it gets really tempting and understandable, but if you want to secure top 2 spots or even a win, it's really important to hit that level 9, so you have max units on the boards. You have a way better chance to start high rolling some of those units, maybe even 3-star your Neela. Yeah, I think that there's a lot of opportunities that you miss out on if you don't hit level 9. As you can see, still dominating here. Make sure you're scouting the boards more. I just knew that I was probably going to win every round, so I got kind of lazy. I do find that there's so many things to think about when you're playing LOL chess, that especially unless you get to like the higher elos, you need to like basically be actively thinking the whole game and rotating around your boards and scouting and stuff. Here I like knew that I was gonna be having a pretty easy time, so I didn't do a ton of that, but also just focus on things that you can control. Like scouting, it is a good high level thing to do, but also, if you're just focusing on your own board while you're learning or getting comfortable with the builds, like that's okay too. Some people, they try to do every single tip, and then they don't necessarily take away the most important points from each of those tips. So just, you know, do your best, and maybe just try to add in one new thing every game that you're gonna do better at. Or once you're so comfortable with your own board, then start scouting more. So the rest of the game is going to play out here. It's not really too exciting. I figured that I couldn't win against this board. There's no way that I'm going to hit level 9 at this point. I probably only have 1 or 2 fights left, so the goal is maybe to hit level 9, but I just don't think it makes a difference. I think this build just outclasses me late game, and that's okay. Like I said earlier, I just like getting top 2, top 3. Of course, it's great to win, but I find that, especially while I'm just focused on climbing, a consistent top 2 or 3 build does more than trying to get a first place build and then it being contested and then end up going 7th or 8th. I find that it's a way less consistent climb, so that's just kind of my my thoughts on the whole I need to get first or eighth kind of mentality. That's just not for me. Oh, so we do make it to one more carousel. I kind of thought that it ended right before this carousel, but I had one more fight left in me, so this is the finale though. So you're gonna see I do get second place. So take a good note for what this board looks like. 2 stars though, so yeah, I'm just gonna get rid of the Lux. I don't think it matters, but hit my level 9, which now I realize, okay, I should have kept that 3-star Lux. Rookie mistake. Not that it really matters, but in another scenario where I could get that higher synergy, that would be pain. That would be such pain. So thanks for watching. Hope you liked the video. More guides are going to come soon, and you can watch the rest of the game.